Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for A Peck of Trouble, and with me today to give me a whole heap of trouble is my good friend SC McPeter. Say hi!
The SCs never did much to heckle people.
Yes, I feel like Dodsworth at times just lazy, just want to get other people to do stuff for me.
And watching this.
But just a few bits of info to get underway. So as mentioned, this is A Peck of Trouble, released on the 28th of March 1953. It had a Blue Ribbon reissue sometime in 1961. It's the 675th in the series, and it's directed by Bob McKimson. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Gone Collection Volume 4 DVD set. A HD version is lurking about. Hopefully one day it'll make its way on disc, but as I've mentioned in a few tracks, I'd rather the unrestored stuff and unreleased stuff put on disc first, and then we can get to these other ones. So, in case you haven't seen this one, I can't show you the full cartoon here due to copyright on YouTube. It'll just get taken down, so don't bother asking. But in case you haven't seen this one, well, Dodsworth is back, and this time he wants to catch a woodpecker for his breakfast, but is too lazy to do it. If you've seen the previous Dodsworth short, Kid and the Kitten, you sort of know what to expect. He becomes this professor of bird catching, and a kitten happens to be there and says, hey, I'll teach you how to catch a bird, and we get a whole bunch of gags involving just that. So, very straightforward. Not much by way of trivia, but the big one is that this is the second and final short to feature the Dodsworth and Kitten character. So why didn't this series continue? A few reasons as to what it could be. One is the obvious ones, that the characters just never took off. Surprise, surprise. Another one is that McKimson's unit would be shut down not long after the release of this short, and once the units came back together, once everything was reopened, it was a whole different crew, so McKimson probably just didn't really want to do any more.
The character may not have taken off, but I think the shutdown may have had part to it because the Tasmanian Devil was also a no-no for some time before and after the shutdown.
I'm leaning towards both. I think it's just a case of the character
didn't click on.
Yep.
And they decided not to do any more.
Yeah, I think it was just that, and that's pretty much it, so nothing too complex there. And some have also said that this is the same woodpecker from Peck Up Your Troubles, a 1945 short with Sylvester that's badly in need of restoration. I really hope that gets fixed up at some point, because that's a genuinely good short. I really like that one. But I think it's just a coincidence in design, because they had different writers, the different crews. I think it's just a design aesthetic.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. What's interesting about this short is that it's pretty much a repeat of the previous Kid and the Kitten, where it's the same concept. You got a lazy cat, he wants to do something, doesn't want to do it, so he ends up being some sort of a professor and wanting to teach this go-getter kitten to try and get things done. I guess the difference here is that in Kid and the kitten's a go-getter, so he fails the first time, but then he's like, okay, I'm going to do it. He catches all the mice and, of course, exceeds Dodsworth's expectations and ends up with a funny gag at the end. Here, he fails the entire time, and he ends up giving up at the end, basically. Spoiler alert. So I guess I can use a Simpsons quote here. The lesson is, never try. I think that's why this doesn't really work as well as the first one, because I liked how the kitten failed the first time, he succeeds. He exceeds expectations, but here it's just,
I think this may have just been a quick follow-up in some regards, but I also feel like they didn't really know what else to do with the character, that they ended up just repeating the structure. They probably figured no one would really care that much, which is understandable, but in hindsight, when we have television and streaming and all of that good stuff, you begin to notice that they would take cartoons and they would remake them, sometimes very similar, sometimes a little bit looser, but here it's them just redoing a concept. And again, that isn't anything to be ashamed of, because the Roadrunners repeat their structure every time, but they have a lot of new gags. But when you have something that's a bit more narrative, I guess, and less focused on the gags themselves leading the story, you kind of feel a little underwhelmed.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem here. And the sad thing is, when I'm watching all these in order, you look at a short like A Peck of Trouble, which is not a bad short by any stretch of the imagination. It's really not. But when you're constantly wowed by these other shorts and you get to something like this, it feels like a letdown. It doesn't feel as exciting as some of the other shorts. And people who may not have seen Kid and the Kitten or may not even watch cartoons that much at the time, it just happened to be before a movie, they might watch this and have a really good laugh, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of funny stuff here. So I got to really try and be fair to some of these quote-unquote lesser shorts.
At the very least, it has very funny gags. I like the fact that they keep throwing stuff at Dodsworth's face, such as the bowling ball at the beginning, and you get the little visual gag of the kitten's head coming out of Dodsworth's body.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at this short from the start, I do like how it establishes that Dodsworth wants to have his breakfast and that he's lazy and all that. Even though it takes a minute and a half just setting things up, it takes a while.
We also still get the funny implication that everyone in his family was a cheat and hands down that gene.
Should have known better. Why, for generations, none of us Dodsworths have ever stooped to physical effort to obtain his breakfast.
It's probably got my favorite line in the short, where he's like, too bad they don't have elevators in those trees.
Too bad they don't have elevators in these trees.
And I should have mentioned earlier, but if you want to know more about this Dodsworth character and the voice actor that did Dodsworth, to check out the review for Kid and the Kitten, because I'll go into that into way more depth. For this review, I just want to focus on this short. So everything's been set up, and then he's like, okay, what do I do? And unlike the first short, where the Kitten approaches the house, because Dodsworth advertises that, hey, this is the school of mouse catching, and this kid wants to become a mouse catcher, here, the kitten's just there. And then Dodsworth comes up with the idea, hey, we're going to teach you how to catch a bird.
Now, would you care to learn the catly art of bird catching under the tutelage of a past master of the noble art?
Of course, Dodsworth doesn't do any of the work. Surprise, surprise, and that's the character. But what do you think of the design of that kitten? Because I asked Camden and Mark Arnold when we did the review for Kid and the Kitten, and they gave me some answers. Like, what do you think of that design? I think it's quite cute.
Yeah, I think it's a nice, cute little design. It's kind of just your typical kid. Has nice big eyes, nice head. It makes a nice little kid that, in contrast to the big, fat, lazy, ugly Dodsworth.
Yeah, and I like how they add a touch of being slightly cross-eyed. I don't know, it just gives it that extra little touch there of personality. In fact, some of my favorite animation in this is pretty much the kitten, and that it's maybe not as refined as what Jones was doing with Pussyfoot in those shorts, but here it's a different kind of thing, and it works really well, I thought.
I agree. I think my favorite little scene is the kitten getting ready to go climb up the tree at the beginning.
Yes. Exactly. That's probably my favorite bit of animation, or one of it at the very least. It's really good. And just before that, I like how Dodsworth just happens to have a bell and a hat just lying around just to do this little school idea. He just grabs it out of nowhere, you know.
I guess this is what he does for every situation.
Exactly. And you have to wonder how he's so fat, because it seems like he must fail pretty often. But anyway,
he carries the laziness by genes, he carries the weight by genes.
I guess so. So you already mentioned the bowling ball bit, but I just want to elaborate. That's a great way to start things off, where Dodsworth's like, oh, where's the kid? And I hear him, and you've got the kid's head on top, and of course, so it's a cute little gag. I thought it was pretty funny as well. Just not crazy funny. I liked it.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite gag in this whole cartoon as well.
I mean, my favorite gag is a little bit further on, but that was still pretty good. I quite like that. And we then get the kite gag, which this is what I was trying to say before when it comes to watching these shorts like this, where it's nothing too spectacular. Like, there's nothing wrong with the kite gag, where the woodpecker just gives the kid dynamite, and that's that. It's okay. It's fine. But again, when you see it so many times, it just doesn't really get a huge response. But it is what it is, of course. We're nearly up to 700, so I've watched way too many of these at this point.
Well, here's my pupil now when he's getting my red-headed breakfast with him. That's it, boy. Don't let him get away. Give him to me, quick.
So, Dodsworth eats the dynamite, and my favorite bit of animation, or at least one of them, aside from the kitten, is the explosion of Belly. That's a good one to slow-mo, if you get the chance. I thought that was a really neat touch. But it didn't quite make much sense when he goes to drink the water, but then it's all just holes. I don't know. It didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, it's like, why does he have holes? I was confused about that, too. I think it would have worked if he had instead just drunk water and smoke came out of his mouth. Or like he was having smoke out of his mouth and he drank water and it went away.
Yeah, something like that. It didn't quite work. But look, you can't win them all. But that one just struck me as kind of weird as well. But anyway. I like where you got Dodsworth, how he's just laying there, and you got the bit where he's actually making a paper airplane. You didn't need to do that, but it just really emphasizes how lazy it is. It's just great. And just that...
Yeah, I agree.
And just the effort of the kid in trying to get this ladder all the way up.
And of course, he puts no effort in trying to at least get himself out when it collapses on him.
Now, I did notice at least 3 points in this short where they actually cut away from what they may have animated if they done this maybe in the 30s and 40s, and this might be just a sign of budget cutbacks, and that a lot of action happens off screen.
Yeah, I was noticing that quite a bit of action had begun to just get off screen or feel a little bit more stiff. Well, this is still before the shutdown when the budgets were really crunched on McKimson, but we've discussed this before on here, that the budgets are slowly beginning to go on these.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the off-screen action where, look, you could argue artistically it works, and it does, but at the same time, you just know that the budget crunch is sort of like, okay, what can we avoid animating? And sure enough, the best thing to avoid animating is the so-called extreme moments, such as the latter. Like, you're better off showing the aftermath. And we all know Hanna-Barbera takes this to the absolute extreme once they start to get up and going in the late 50s. But I didn't expect Dodsworth's fur to come off like it did. And, I mean, nice boxer shorts, by the way. I thought that was, of all the colours that they picked, just... But there wasn't much of a punchline there. He just breaks the fourth wall, grins at the screen, and that's pretty much it. He's just embarrassed. And that's it. Like, there was nothing there.
I kind of agree that there really was nothing there, but I feel like, yeah, some of the gags here work and then some of them don't.
Yeah. The interesting idea is the pole gag where Dodsworth has to keep up the nitroglycerin this woodpecker just happens to have. And then like it then puts on a blindfold with a cigarette, which is a nod to the firing line back in the day where prisoners would opt to get blindfolded and maybe have a cigarette before they're, shot to death. So I like how he just knows his fate. But then you got the lackluster result of the flames. It just didn't really do much. I don't know. Something about it just didn't quite work there.
Even I'm yawning over just this.
And then the final part is the kid getting launched into the tree where Dodsworth's like, okay, I'm giving you one last chance. And he's launched into the tree. And again, we get some off-screen action. We just hear sound effects and just reaction shots and stuff, which would have been cheaper to do. Then Dodsworth's like, wait a minute. I think the kitten has my breakfast. And we end then with the line, if you can't beat him, join him, and the kitten's our woodpecker. So
I think the end did show, I think, the most obvious of the budget crunch are beginning to happen, because I feel that the sequence with him thinking that the kitten has eaten the bird could have been handled a bit more dramatically for effect. And also the fact that we see him hold up the letter in just a stilted background, I think is another sign of the times that are coming.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I like some of the color choices of the background, and I definitely like some of it, but you can just tell that...
I think the ending, otherwise, is still very funny, because it ends weird enough. It ends weird enough for me to at least enjoy it as a watch. Maybe not as funny as the others, but at least it works.
Exactly, yeah. Look, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10, because even though some of the things didn't really work for me, it's still a decent short. If it's on TV, I'll watch it, and it still has some funny moments, and it's not like it's so incompetent like, I don't know, a Buddy short or whatever, but there's competence, it's well animated, despite some of the budgetary stuff that's pretty obvious. Story's okay, but I don't know. I think it's just one of those average ones and kind of forgettable, so 7 out of 10. What about you?
I'm going to give it a 7 too, just for what you said. I think that on its own, it's very good. I think even some of the duds are better than a lot of the above averages that other studios were having by this time. But then again, it's still Warner's, and comparing it to other Warner cartoons, it's just not as good. McKimson did do good cartoons, of course, and I've been on some of them, but I think McKimson just wasn't the same visionary that Jones or even Freely were. But at the very least, he did make a lot of decently good shorts.
Exactly, including the next one we're going to be recording, which is a wonderful Daffy beach going short to give people a bit of a hint as to when you'll be on next, but another one off the list, I guess. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.
That's all, folks.